Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. When most people think of eating disorders, you might picture someone either starving themselves or binging. But our next guest says sometimes disordered eating is much more subtle. Joining us now to talk about National Eating Disorder Week, we welcome back to the show recovery specialist Kyla Fox. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's great to see you.
You too. So tell us about this high functioning quality of eating disorders where somebody might appear quite healthy on the outside.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned at the top of the segment is just that we think about eating disorders in pretty stereotypical ways, but we might not actually realize that people who are suffering quite severely, that doesn't always show itself so severely in the body. And it doesn't mean that people aren't having symptoms of binging or purging or restricting. They may very well be doing that quite, intensively throughout their days, throughout their weeks. And I think sometimes we have this idea about what a person with an eating disorder looks like or the stage of life they're in. But the truth is that so many people who have these harmful behaviors are high functioning in the world. They're working, they're raising their children, they're, going to school, they're CEOs, they're the baristas that you see every day, and they're suffering very significantly.
I'm hearing more people talk about the concept of food noise, and it makes a lot of sense where if it's part of your brain kind of churning all the time, you could understand why that pressure feels so intense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really sort of the essence of an eating disorder. If you think about it, it's actually really a mental health issue, one of the most severe with the highest mortality rate. And so the idea of that really is that it's excessive noise, pervasive thoughts, intrusive thoughts that are happening in someone's mind about not only what they eat or what their body looks like, but also things that sort of diminish their self-concept, really negative thinking, critical thinking, lots of judgments, lots of criticism. Yeah.
And it makes sense when you add things that we see on social media, like this wellness culture, that where things on the outside, they seem like a good, healthy thing, but to someone dealing with all that food noise, it might be really harmful.
Yeah. And I think also further to that, diet culture, fitness culture, health culture, wellness culture, all of these things, like you said, they give strong messages around what to eat, what not to eat. This is what it means to do really well. This is what it means to be healthy, but not necessarily realizing that people are really stuck in really thought like, aggressive rules and rituals. If they don't do a certain thing, then they punish themselves for it. If they eat that thing, then they also have to punish themselves for it. So I think sometimes we look a lot outside of ourselves to get information about how we should behave with food, how we should behave with our body. But I'm not always sure we're tuning in enough to actually do what's good for us and listen to what we actually need ourselves.
So, are more people being diagnosed with some form of disordered eating at older ages now?
Yes, very much so. I think people are realizing more and more that the rituals and rules that they have to follow around food really do impact the quality of their life, the freedom that they want to feel. And that would sort of classify as disordered eating.
Are there certain warning signs that a lot of us are missing and our loved ones that we're just not aware are even problematic?
Well, one of the great things that I think is really helpful is to ask yourself, like, how often are you thinking about food throughout your day? Like, what you should eat, when you'll eat, what it will be, what it will feel like, what it will taste like, what you want, or even just like how much think about your body, like what it looks like, how often do you look at it, how often do you think about having to change it, what part of it don't you like, how critical are you of it? I think if we could sort of dial back to how much space this can take up in our lives, we might realize that it's way more pervasive than we know. And I think that's a good starting point to say, this is taking up a lot more space than it should.
Yeah, and I think just thinking about all of the messaging that we get, like every time I turn the TV on, I see so many commercials for weight loss medication, and that seems like it could be a hard thing to consume on so often.
Yeah, I mean taking weight loss medication is a whole other part of the spectrum of for many who have eating disorders. And I think now again there's sort of this uprise in thinness, and the impact that that has on people is quite significant. And so I think it's all these ways to check in with yourself around how that makes you feel, how that makes you think about your own body, your own relationship with food. I think bringing awareness to the space that takes up in your life is really, really important.
Right, because sometimes it can feel kind of scary to look inward, but if you do become aware of how much space it's taking up, that's really the first step, right, to finding a better path forward.
I think so. I think awareness is definitely step one.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing this advice with us today. It was so nice chatting with you.
You too. Great to
Oh,
see you.
you as well. Okay, we're going to have more information on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.